My husband died because my family refused to help. They told me they would pray for him, but what they didn't know was I wasn't the victim anymore. I decided to give them something to pray about. And by the time I was done, every single one of them wished they had never been born a Connors. My name is Riley. Riley Connors, and I am going to tell you a story. And before you judge me, I want you to remember one thing. You have never been as alone as I was on the night I found out that everyone I loved had already buried me while I was still breathing. I grew up in a small town in Ohio called Millbrook. If you've never heard of it, don't worry. Neither has anyone else. It was the kind of place where everyone knew your grandfather's name before they knew yours, where the high school football field had more money put into it than the library, where the biggest scandal before I came along was that old Mrs. Hartley put her pet parrot in the church nativity scene instead of a wise man. I was the youngest of three. My older brother, Derek, was the golden boy. 6'2", quarterback arm, a smile that could sell anything. My older sister, Morgan, was the pretty one. Perfect grades, perfect hair, perfect way of looking at you like you were a bug she hadn't decided to squash yet. And then there was me, Riley, the quiet one, the one who stayed in her room and read books, the one who never asked for much, because I learned early that asking just gave people a chance to say no. My dad, Mark Connors, owned a construction company that had been in the family for 3 generations. My mom, Linda, was the church choir director. We had a white house with blue shutters and a porch swing that creaked in the summer wind. From the outside, we were the postcard family. From the outside, you would have thought nothing bad could ever touch us. But bad things don't care about outside appearances. Bad things wait until the front door is closed. I want to start where the curiosity begins for you, because you need to understand that what I did later didn't come from nothing. It came from a long line of small hurts that piled up like snow until one day the roof just caved in. The first crack in the picture frame happened when I was 6 years old. I remember it because it was my birthday. I had drawn a picture for my mom, a rainbow and a dog and our family holding hands. I gave it to her at breakfast. She looked at it for exactly 1 second. Then she folded it and put it in her pocket and said, "That's nice, honey. Now eat your eggs so I can take Derek to practice." That was it. No hug, no smile. No, this is going on the fridge. Just folded and forgotten. I found that picture years later in the bottom of her closet, crumpled and stained. She had never even looked at it again. Derek got trophies. Morgan got new dresses. I got leftovers. Leftover attention. Leftover love. Leftover space at the dinner table. And I learned to accept it. Because what else was I supposed to do? I was 6. I didn't know I deserved more. I just thought that was how families worked. Some kids were the sun, some kids were the moon, and some kids were just the darkness in between. When I was 8, I got the lead role in the school play. A small part, but still, the lead. I practiced for weeks. I said my lines to the mirror. I was so proud, I asked my parents to come. My dad said he had a business dinner. My mom said she had choir practice. Derek laughed at me. Morgan said, "It's just a school play, Riley. Nobody cares." My teacher, Mrs. Alvarez, came. She sat in the front row. She clapped the loudest. After the show, she gave me a flower, a real one, a daisy. I kept that daisy pressed in a book for 10 years. Because that was the first time an adult made me feel like I mattered. That should have told me something, but I was 8. I didn't know how to read the signs. The second big crack happened when I was 16 years old. I had saved up money from babysitting the neighbor kids for 2 summers. $540. I know the exact number because I counted it every night before bed. I was going to buy a used car, not a nice one. Just something with 4 wheels and a prayer. A little Honda Civic that smelled like old coffee and had a dent in the passenger door. It was parked at Miller's Auto Sales on Route 9. I had my eye on it for months. Every afternoon on my walk home from school, I would pass that car. I would run my hand along the hood. I would sit in the driver's seat and pretend. The salesman, old Mr. Miller, would just smile and wave. He knew I didn't have the money yet, but he also knew I would, because I worked. I babysat the Thompson twins every Tuesday and Thursday. I mowed Mrs. Patterson's lawn every Saturday. I cleaned out Mr. Chen's garage every Sunday afternoon. I earned every single dollar. One morning, I went to my sock drawer where I kept the envelope. It was gone. I tore my room apart. I checked under my mattress, in my backpack, inside my winter boots. Nothing. My heart started pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. I went downstairs. Everyone was at the kitchen table. Derek was eating cereal. Morgan was scrolling her phone. Mom was wiping the counter. Dad was reading the paper. It was a normal morning. The sun was coming through the window. The radio was playing soft country music. Everything looked fine. But I knew something was wrong. I could feel it in my bones. I said, "Did anyone take money from my room?" The silence that followed was not the silence of innocence. It was the silence of people deciding who was going to speak first. Derek looked at Morgan. Morgan looked at Mom. Mom looked at Dad. The paper went down, slowly, like a man lowering a flag. Dad folded his paper very slowly, the way a man does when he's about to tell you something you don't want to hear, but he's already decided it's for your own good. "We used it for the church roof fund," Dad said. I blinked. "You what?" "Pastor Tim said the roof was leaking over the nursery. We needed to show leadership in the congregation. Your mother and I decided that the family donation would come from your savings." I remember my hands started shaking, not from anger, from confusion, because my brain couldn't connect the dots between my $540 and a church roof I had never even looked at twice. I had been saving for that car for 2 years. 2 years of changing diapers and mowing lawns and cleaning garages. 2 years of coming home with sore arms and tired feet. 2 years of dreaming about independence. "You didn't ask me," I said. Mom turned from the counter. Her voice was soft, which somehow made it worse. "Honey, we're a family. What's yours is ours, and it was for a good cause." "That was my car money." Morgan looked up from her phone. Her smile was small and sharp. "Oh my God, Riley, it's a church roof. Stop being dramatic." Derek snorted into his cereal. "Yeah, it's not like you were going to buy a Ferrari. It was a junk car anyway." I looked at my father. His eyes were back on the paper. The conversation was over. I had been dismissed. That was the first time I realized that in my family, love was a math equation, and my part of the equation didn't add up to much. I didn't get a car that year. I walked to school in the rain. I walked home in the dark. I walked past Miller's auto sales every single day. And every single day, that little blue Honda Civic sat there, waiting, until one day it was gone. Mr. Miller sold it to someone else. He shrugged when he saw me. "Sorry, kid, had to move it." I nodded. I walked home. I didn't cry. I had learned by then that crying didn't change anything. It just gave my family something to ignore. But that was small. That was a paper cut. What came later was a knife. I graduated high school with a 3.9 GPA, not perfect, because perfect wasn't allowed in my house. Perfect made Morgan uncomfortable. I got a partial scholarship to a state school an hour away. I needed $4,000 to cover the rest. $4,000. That was the difference between leaving Millbrook and staying forever. I worked 3 jobs that summer. I cleaned hotel rooms from 7 in the morning until noon. I bagged groceries from 1 in the afternoon until 6. Then I answered phones at a dentist's office from 7 until 10 at night. I was exhausted. I was thin. I had dark circles under my eyes, but I had a goal. I was going to leave. I was going to be something. By August, I had the money. I kept it in a bank account this time. I learned my lesson. I didn't tell anyone how much I had. I just kept my head down and worked. The week before I was supposed to leave, my father sat me down in the living room. He had that look on his face. The one that said he was about to give me a gift that was really a chain. The sun was setting. The living room was golden. My mother was in the kitchen. I could hear dishes clinking. "Riley," he said, "your mother and I have been talking. We don't think you should go away to school." I said nothing. I just waited. My hands were folded in my lap. I could feel my heart beating. "Your brother is starting his master's degree in business. Your sister is applying to law school. The family needs you here. Your mother's arthritis is getting worse. The house needs help. And honestly, sweetheart, you've never been the academic type." I had a 3.9 GPA. I had won the English award 2 years in a row. I had a scholarship. But I didn't say that. I had learned that facts didn't matter to my father. Only his opinions mattered. "We've already spoken to the bank," he continued. "We're using your college fund to help Derek with his tuition. He's going to be the one who carries the Connors name forward. You understand, don't you?" My college fund was not a fund. It was my savings. My $4,000, the money from my 3 jobs, the money from my bleeding fingers and my aching feet, the money from the hotel rooms that smelled like other people's sweat, the money from the grocery store where my back hurt so bad I couldn't sleep, the money from the dentist's office where I fell asleep standing up. "Dad," I said, my voice was very quiet. "That's my money." He leaned forward. For a second, I thought I saw something soft in his eyes, something that looked like guilt. But then it was gone. "No, Riley, it's family money, and family comes first. You'll thank us one day." I didn't thank him. I went to my room, I sat on my bed. I stared at the wall. And then I cried, not the quiet kind. The kind that comes from somewhere deep and dark and ancient. The kind that sounds like an animal dying. I cried until I had nothing left, until my eyes were swollen and my throat was raw, until I couldn't remember why I had ever believed things would be different. Then I packed a bag, not for school, just for anywhere else. I was going to leave that night. I was going to walk to the bus station and buy a ticket to somewhere that didn't have a Connors attached to it. I had $50 hidden in my shoe. $50? That was all I had left after they took the $4,000. But I didn't leave, because my mother came into my room. She sat on my bed. She held me. She held me the way she used to when I was little and had nightmares. She stroked my hair and whispered that she loved me. She said that God had a plan for me. She said that my time would come. She said that I was strong, stronger than Derek, stronger than Morgan, strong enough to wait. And like a fool, I believed her, so I stayed. I got a full-time job at a call center. I answered calls from angry people about their cable bills. I said I'm sorry 1,000 times a day. I gave half my paycheck to my parents for house expenses. I watched Derek buy a brand new truck. I watched Morgan get a new wardrobe for law school. I watched them live the lives I was supposed to have. I wore the same 3 pairs of jeans for 2 years. The knees wore thin. I patched them with fabric from an old shirt. My mother said I looked practical. Derek said I looked poor. But here is the part where the story turns. Here is the part you need to pay attention to. When I was 20 years old, I met a man named Sam. Sam was a mechanic. He worked at a garage on the south side of town, the kind of place that smelled like oil and rubber and coffee. He had grease under his fingernails and a laugh that sounded like thunder. He was not rich. He was not fancy. But when he looked at me like I was the only person in the room, the only person in the world. I met him because my car broke down. The old junker I had finally bought with my own money after 2 more years of saving. It died right in front of his garage. I sat behind the wheel and put my head on the steering wheel and cried. Not because the car broke, because everything broke. My life was a series of broken things, and I was tired. Sam walked out. He tapped on my window. I rolled it down. He had a rag in his hand and a smile on his face. "Bad day?" he asked. I laughed. It came out wet and sad. "You could say that." He looked at my car. He looked at me. He said, "Pop the hood. Let me see what I can do." He fixed it in 20 minutes. A loose belt. He charged me $10. I knew it should have cost more. I tried to give him 20. He shook his head. "Buy yourself a hot meal instead," he said. "You look like you haven't eaten in a while." I didn't know how he could tell. But he could. Sam saw things other people missed. He asked me out the next week. I said no. I wasn't ready. I didn't trust anyone. He said okay. He didn't push. He just smiled and said, "The offer stands. Whenever you're ready." 3 months later, I said yes. We went to a diner. We split a piece of pie, apple, with ice cream on the side. He told me about his father who died when he was 12, his mother who worked 2 jobs, his dream of opening his own garage someday. A small one, just for him, just enough to live on. I told him about my family, about the car money, about the college fund, about the lake house for Derek, about the wedding for Morgan, about the way my mother loved me best when she was apologizing for my father, about the way my father looked at me like I was a business expense he couldn't write off. Sam listened. He didn't interrupt. He didn't say, "You should forgive them," or "Family is family." He just listened. And when I was done, he reached across the table and took my hand. He said, "You deserve more than leftovers." I fell in love with him. Not because he was perfect, but because he saw me. The real me, not the quiet Riley who stayed in her room, the Riley who dreamed of being a journalist, the Riley who wrote stories in secret notebooks, the Riley who was still alive under all that silence, The Riley who wanted to see the ocean, who wanted to live in a city with tall buildings, who wanted to be someone. We got married 2 years later. Small ceremony. No church. Just a courthouse and a picnic in the park. I wore a white dress I bought at a thrift store for $15. Sam wore a clean button-down shirt and his good jeans. My family came, but they sat in the back. They smiled in the photos. They left early. Derek said the food was fine. Morgan said my dress was interesting. My mother said she wished we had done it in a church. My father shook Sam's hand like he was closing a deal. That night, Sam and I sat on the hood of his truck and looked at the stars. He put his arm around me. He said, "We're going to be happy, Riley, I promise." I believed him. Sam and I bought a little house on the edge of town. It had a cracked driveway and a tree that dropped leaves everywhere and a back porch that sagged in the middle. But it was ours. We painted the living room yellow, the color of sunshine, the color of hope. We adopted a cat named Waffles. He was orange and fat and he purred like a motorboat. We talked about having kids someday, a girl. We would name her Lily. We talked about everything. About the future. About the ocean. About the city with tall buildings. For 3 years, I was happy. Not pretend happy. Not I'll take what I can get happy. Real happy. The kind that fills your chest so full you think it might burst. The kind that makes you forget that you ever cried yourself to sleep. The kind that makes you believe that the past is just the past and it can't touch you anymore. I was wrong. And then Sam got sick. It started with a cough that wouldn't go away, just a little cough, nothing serious. He joked about it. Said he must have swallowed a bug. Then came the weight loss. He dropped 20 pounds in a month. His jeans hung loose. His face looked hollow. Then came the fatigue. He would come home from work and fall asleep on the couch before dinner. I would cover him with a blanket and sit beside him and watch him breathe. I told myself it was nothing, just stress, just work, just life. Then came the doctor's appointment. Then the tests. Then the phone call. Then the word that changes everything. Cancer. Stage 4, pancreatic. I remember sitting in the doctor's office. The doctor was a kind woman with gray hair and sad eyes. She had given this news many times before. She knew the script. She said the words gently. She offered tissues. She talked about options, but I didn't hear most of it. I heard stage 4 and pancreatic and 6 months, and then everything else was just noise. Sam held my hand. His hand was warm. His hand was still Sam's hand. The same hand that had fixed my car. The same hand that had held mine at the diner. The same hand that had put a ring on my finger. That hand was going to stop being warm. It was going to stop being Sam's, and there was nothing I could do. The doctors gave him 6 months. They gave me a pamphlet on grief counseling and a list of medications that cost more than our house. I remember sitting in the parking lot of the hospital. The sun was setting. The sky was orange and pink and beautiful, and I thought, this is how the world ends for you, not with a bang, but with a beautiful sunset while you hold a piece of paper that says your husband is going to die. I didn't tell my family right away. I didn't know how. I drove home. I sat on the couch next to Sam. He was sleeping. He looked so peaceful. His chest rose and fell. His lips were slightly parted. He looked like he did on our wedding night. Young, hopeful, alive, I touched his hand. He opened his eyes and smiled. "Hey, Riley," he said. "Hey, Sam," I said. And then I started crying. Not the quiet kind. The kind that comes from somewhere deep and dark and ancient. The kind that sounds like an animal dying. Sam held me, even though he was the one who was sick. Even though he was the one who was dying. He held me and said, "We'll figure it out. We always do." But we didn't figure it out because we didn't have enough money. And that is the ugliest truth in America. You can love someone with your whole heart. You can be the best person in the world. But if you don't have money, your love doesn't matter. Your love doesn't buy the treatment. Your love doesn't stop the pain. Your love doesn't keep the sun from setting. I went to my family. I swallowed every ounce of pride I had. I stood in my father's kitchen. The same kitchen where I had been told about the church roof. The same kitchen where I had been told about the college fund. The same kitchen where I had been told that family comes first. I stood there. I looked at my father. I looked at my mother. I looked at Derek and Morgan, who happened to be visiting. I said, "Sam is dying. He has pancreatic cancer. Stage 4. The doctors say there's a treatment, an experimental one. It costs $20,000. I don't have it. I have nothing left. I sold my car. I sold my wedding ring. I sold everything. Please, I am begging you. Please help me. My father didn't look at me. He looked at the floor. Then he looked at my mother. Then he looked at Derek. Then he looked at Morgan. Then he said the words that I will carry to my grave. Riley, we just put a down payment on a lake house for your brother, and Morgan is getting married next spring. The wedding is going to cost a fortune. We don't have that kind of money just lying around. I said, he's going to die. My mother said, honey, we'll pray for him. Pray. They would pray. While my husband faded away like a photograph left in the sun. While I watched the love of my life turn into a ghost. While I held his hand and felt the warmth leave his body 1 degree at a time. Derek said, maybe you should have planned better. Morgan said, yeah, Riley, you can't just expect everyone to drop everything for you. I looked at them, all of them. My father, my mother, my brother, my sister, the people who were supposed to love me, the people who were supposed to be there when things got hard, the people who took my car money, the people who took my college fund, the people who bought a lake house and planned a wedding while my husband died. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just looked at them, really looked at them. For the first time in my life, I saw them clearly. My father, the man who built houses but never built a home. My mother, the woman who sang about love in church but never learned how to give it. My brother, who never worked a day in his life but got everything. My sister, who never struggled but always complained. I walked out. I didn't slam the door, I just walked. The screen door creaked behind me. The porch swing swayed in the breeze. The sun was setting again. It was always setting. I went home. Sam was on the couch. Waffles was curled up on his lap. Sam was watching a nature documentary. Penguins, he loved penguins. He said they were loyal. They mated for life. I sat down next to him. I didn't tell him what my family said. I didn't want him to know. I wanted his last months to be as good as possible. I wanted him to believe that people were better than they were, so I lied. I told him the treatment was scheduled. I told him everything was going to be okay. He smiled. He believed me, because he loved me. And because he was dying, and dying people want to believe the people they love. I sold everything I owned. My car, my wedding ring, the yellow couch, the dishes, the pots and pans, the books. Even Waffles the cat went to a nice old lady down the street because I couldn't afford his food anymore. I sold my blood. I sold my plasma. I did things I am not proud of. I stood on a corner with a sign that said, "Help save my husband." People looked at me like I was trash. Some gave me money, most didn't. I got Sam into a clinical trial. It cost everything I had, everything. It bought us 3 more months. 3 months of holding hands. 3 months of watching terrible movies on the laptop. 3 months of pretending we had time. 3 months of lying to each other that things would be okay. He died on a Tuesday. It was raining. The rain tapped against the hospital window like little fingers. I was holding his hand. His hand was cold now, not warm like before, cold and thin. The cancer had eaten him from the inside. He was a skeleton with skin. But his eyes were still Sam's eyes. Blue, kind, tired. The last thing he said was, "You're the best thing that ever happened to me." And then he was gone, just like that. 1 second he was there. The next second he wasn't. The machines beeped. The nurse came in. She said something about being sorry. She pulled the sheet over his face. I didn't move. I just sat there, holding his hand. I sat in that hospital room for 6 hours. I didn't move. I didn't cry. I just sat. The rain stopped. The sun came out. A rainbow appeared. I thought about penguins, mating for life. I thought about Sam, about his laugh that sounded like thunder, about his hands that fixed my car, about the way he said my name. Riley. Like it was something precious. And in the silence, something inside me changed. Not broke, changed. It was like a door closing in my heart, and on the other side of that door was the old Riley. The quiet Riley. The one who accepted leftovers. The one who said okay when her father stole her money. The one who believed her mother's lies. The one who hoped. She was gone, and someone else was waking up. Someone cold, someone patient. Someone who had nothing left to lose. The funeral was small. A few of Sam's friends from the garage. His sister flew in from Oregon. She hugged me and cried and said Sam talked about me all the time. She said he called me his sunshine. I didn't cry. I couldn't. The tears were gone, something else was in their place, and my family came. My family came, they sat in the back row, they wore black, they looked sad. But it was the kind of sad you wear like an accessory. Something you put on in the morning and take off at night. Derek checked his phone during the service. Morgan touched up her lipstick. My mother held my father's hand. My father looked at his watch. After the funeral, my mother came up to me. She hugged me. She smelled like roses. She said, "We're so sorry, sweetheart, but you're young, you'll find someone else." Someone else. As if Sam was a pair of shoes that had worn out. As if love was something you could replace at the mall. My father shook my hand, not a hug, a handshake, like I was a business associate, like I was someone he met at a conference. He said, "If you need anything, let us know." But his eyes said, "Please don't need anything." Derek said, "Hang in there, sis." Then he walked away to take a phone call. Morgan said, "I have a dress fitting, I have to go." And she left. Right there, at my husband's funeral. She left before the pastor finished the final prayer. I stood by the grave. The rain had stopped. The sun came out. The grass was wet. The dirt on the coffin was dark and fresh. I picked up a handful of dirt. I let it fall through my fingers, and I made a decision. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet. It was final. I decided that my family had taken their last thing from me. I went home to the empty house, the yellow walls, the sagging porch, the tree that dropped leaves. Sam's toothbrush was still in the bathroom. His shoes were by the door. His jacket hung on the hook. The smell of him was fading from the pillows. I sat on the floor of the bedroom. Waffles was gone. Sam was gone. Everything was gone, and I started to plan. I didn't want revenge. Revenge sounds hot and angry. Revenge sounds like screaming and breaking things. What I wanted was balance. I wanted them to feel what I felt, not for one day, not for 1 week, for a long, long time. I wanted them to understand that every time they chose Derek or Morgan or themselves, they were choosing to leave me in the dark. And now, the dark was going to come visit them. But I had to be smart. I couldn't yell. I couldn't break things. I had to be patient. Because the best revenge doesn't look like revenge, it looks like life just happening. And only the person who got hurt knows the truth. The first thing I did was go back to work. I got a job at a local paper, the Millbrook Gazette. It was a small paper. Old people read it, nobody important, but I worked hard. I wrote stories about town council meetings and school board drama. I wrote about the new stoplight on Main Street. I wrote obituaries. I wrote wedding announcements. I wrote everything they gave me. I stayed late. I came early. I never complained. And I watched. I watched my family like a hawk watches a field of mice. I watched from a distance. I listened. I paid attention to the small things. The things people say when they don't think anyone is listening. I learned things, small things at first. Derek's construction company was struggling. He had taken out loans he couldn't pay back. He was lying to my father about profits. He was using company money to pay for his girlfriend's apartment. A girlfriend who wasn't his wife. Morgan's fiancé, a rich guy named Bradley, had a gambling problem. A bad one. He was losing money at casinos 2 towns over. He had sold his car to cover a debt. He was borrowing from friends who were starting to ask questions. My father had been borrowing from his own company's pension fund to cover Morgan's wedding. The wedding was out of control. 300 guests, a live band, flowers flown in from Holland, a dress that cost more than my house. My father was bleeding money. My mother was having an emotional affair with the church's new music director. Nothing physical, but enough that she was deleting text messages, enough that she was meeting him for coffee, enough that she looked at him the way she never looked at my father. I didn't do anything with this information. Not yet. I just collected it. Like a squirrel stores nuts for winter. I wrote everything down in a notebook. Dates, times, details. I kept it hidden under the floorboard in my bedroom. Sam's and my bedroom. The room where we used to sleep. The room where he died. But the thing that really opened the door for me was the will. Sam's will. He had made one a week before he died. He didn't have much. A life insurance policy. $25,000. It wasn't a lot, but it was something. Sam left everything to me. But there was a clause. A weird clause. Sam's grandfather had been a lawyer, and Sam had learned a few things. The clause said that if I died within 5 years of Sam, everything would go to a charity. not to my family. To a charity for mechanics education. Sam's little joke. He always said nobody respected the people who fixed their cars. He would laugh when he talked about it, that laugh, like thunder. But that clause gave me an idea. A terrible, beautiful, brilliant idea. What if I didn't have to destroy my family? What if I could make them destroy each other? I started visiting my parents more often. I brought cookies. Homemade. I learned to bake. I asked about their lives. I laughed at my father's jokes. I told my mother she looked young. I listened to Derek complain about his business. I listened to Morgan complain about Bradley. I played the part of the grieving widow who was finally healing, the one who needed her family. They ate it up. Because that's the thing about people who have always taken from you. They don't know how to react when you start giving. It confuses them. It makes them think they were right about you all along, that you were always going to forgive them, that you were always going to come back, that you were weak. I let them think that. I got close to Derek. I asked about his business. He complained about cash flow. He said the bank wouldn't give him a loan. He said he might lose everything. He was scared. I could see it in his eyes. The same fear I had felt when Sam was dying. The same desperation. I offered to invest. I have Sam's insurance money, I said. $25,000. I don't know what to do with it. Why don't you take it? Family helping family. Derek's eyes lit up. He said yes before I finished the sentence. He hugged me. He called me his favorite sister. He had never called me that before. I gave him the money. No contract, no paperwork, just a handshake. Because that's what family does, right? Then I went to Morgan. She was stressed about the wedding. Bradley's gambling debts were getting worse. She had maxed out her credit cards. She was 2 months behind on her rent. She was crying in the bathroom at my parents' house. I found her there, sitting on the floor, mascara running down her face. I have some money left, I said. 15,000, not much, but it's yours if you want it. No interest. Pay me back when you can. She cried. She hugged me. She said I was the best sister in the world. She said she would never forget what I did for her. She said she would pay me back as soon as the wedding was over. I smiled. I said, that's what family is for. What they didn't know was that I had already started a paper trail. Emails, texts, voicemails. Every time Derek promised to pay me back. Every time Morgan swore she would never forget what I did for her. I saved everything. I backed it up in 3 different places. The cloud, a USB drive, a printed copy in a safe deposit box. But that was just the beginning. The real trap needed bait, and the bait was my father. I went to him one evening. He was sitting in his recliner, watching a baseball game. The Reds, they were losing. He was drinking a beer. My mother was at choir practice. The house was quiet. The porch swing creaked in the wind. I sat on the couch next to him. I waited for a commercial. Dad, I said, I've been thinking about the family company. He muted the TV. What about it? I know things have been tight. I know Derek is struggling. And I know you've been taking money from the pension fund. His face went pale, not a little pale. The color drained out of him like water from a bathtub. His beer bottle froze halfway to his mouth. How do you know that? I'm a journalist, Dad. I notice things, but I'm not here to blackmail you. I'm here to help. I leaned forward. I lowered my voice. I made sure I had his full attention. The baseball game was forgotten. The beer was forgotten. I was the only thing in the room. I have an idea. The company owns that old warehouse on Elm Street. It's been empty for years. You could sell it, easily. I know a developer from Columbus who's been looking for exactly that kind of property. He'd pay $300,000 cash. You could put the money back in the pension fund, give Derek a lifeline, and nobody ever has to know. My father stared at me. I could see the gears turning in his head. He was not a good man, but he was a man who loved control, and I was offering him a way to keep control. I was offering him a way out, a way that didn't involve prison, a way that didn't involve shame. Who's the developer? He asked. His name is Marcus Webb. I interviewed him for a story last year. He's legit. I'll set up a meeting. I didn't tell my father that Marcus Webb didn't exist. I didn't tell him that the phone number I gave him went to a burner phone I bought at a gas station. I didn't tell him that I had spent 3 months learning how to fake a voice on the phone, how to sound like a middle-aged businessman from Columbus. I didn't tell him that I had created a whole website for this fake developer, a website with photos of buildings that weren't his, with testimonials from people who didn't exist. The meeting was set. My father was excited. He sold the warehouse. He got the money, $300,000. He put most of it back in the pension fund. He gave $50,000 to Derek. He kept $50,000 for himself. He thought he was safe. He thought he had gotten away with it. He hadn't. Because 3 weeks later, an anonymous letter arrived at the State Labor Board. It contained bank records showing that Mark Connors had been embezzling from his own company's pension fund for years. The letter was detailed. It had dates, amounts, account numbers. It had everything the investigators would need. The investigation began. My father panicked. He called me. He was crying. I had never heard my father cry. Not when his own father died. Not when the company almost went under in the recession. Not ever. But now he was crying, sobbing, begging. "Riley, you have to help me. Someone is trying to destroy me. You have to help me figure out who." I said, "Of course, Dad. I'll do whatever I can." And I did. I helped him hide more money. I helped him delete emails. I helped him lie to the investigators. I helped him fabricate documents. I helped him blame a dead employee. Every step of the way, I documented everything. Every lie he told. Every instruction he gave me. Every forged signature. I recorded phone calls. I saved text messages. I built a file so thick it could choke a horse. Meanwhile, Derek's business was failing. The $25,000 I gave him, he used it to pay off a loan shark, but it wasn't enough. The shark came back. He broke Derek's finger. He threatened his wife. Derek borrowed from my father. My father gave him money from the hidden account, the one I helped him set up. And Morgan, her fiancé, Bradley, lost his entire savings in one night at a casino in Cincinnati. $40,000. Gone. He came home drunk. He threw a lamp. He called Morgan names. She called me. She was hysterical. I went to her apartment. I held her while she cried. I told her everything would be okay. Then I suggested she take out a loan, a big one, from a man I knew, a man who charged very high interest. "Are you sure?" she asked. "He's a friend of Sam's," I said. "He's trustworthy." He wasn't a friend of Sam's. He wasn't even a real person. He was me. I had set up a fake lending company online. The website looked professional. The interest rate was buried in the fine print. Morgan signed without reading. She was desperate. Desperate people don't read. They just sign. 6 months passed. The investigation into my father grew. He was forced to step down from the company. Derek took over. Derek, who had no experience running anything larger than a lemonade stand. The company started to crumble. Contracts were lost. Employees were laid off. The Connors name, the name that meant something in Millbrook for 3 generations, started to rot. My mother found out about the hidden money. She found out about the affair my father wasn't having, but she found enough texts from women who weren't her to believe he was cheating. I may have sent a few of those texts myself, from a burner phone, late at night when my mother was alone and vulnerable, just little things. "Had fun last night. Can't wait to see you again. You're so different from Linda." She confronted him. He denied it. She didn't believe him. They screamed. They threw things, a vase, a lamp, a picture of our family at Disney World. The neighbors called the police. For the first time in 40 years, the Connors family was a headline in the Millbrook Gazette. And I wrote the article. I wrote it under a pseudonym, but I wrote it. I described the screaming, the broken vase, the way my mother locked herself in the bathroom, the way my father slept in his truck. I used details that only someone inside the house would know, but nobody ever suspected me, because I was the good daughter, the one who brought cookies, the one who had lost her husband, the one who was just so sad all the time. Sad people don't get suspected. Sad people get ignored, and I had been ignored my whole life. Now, being ignored was my greatest weapon. The trap was almost ready to close, but I needed one more piece. The final piece. The piece that would make sure none of them could ever come after me when this was over. I went to Derek. He was drinking now, a lot. His wife had left him. His company was bankrupt. He had 3 months before the bank took his house. He was living in my parents' basement, sleeping on a couch, drinking whiskey from the bottle. "Derek," I said, "I have a way out for you." He looked at me with bloodshot eyes. His breath smelled like alcohol. His hands were shaking. He looked 10 years older than he was. "What way?" "Dad is going to prison. You know that, right? The investigation is almost done. They have enough evidence to put him away for 10 years. He nodded. He knew. Everyone knew. But what if Dad didn't go to prison? What if someone else took the fall? Someone who was already in trouble? Someone like Bradley, Morgan's fiancé? Derek's eyes widened. Bradley? He has a gambling problem. He's desperate for money. He's already committed fraud to cover his losses. If you could make it look like Bradley was the one who took the pension money, Dad would be free, and you would be the hero who saved the family. Derek was drunk enough to listen, drunk enough to agree, drunk enough to let me walk him through every step of the plan, and I recorded every word, his slurred voice, his desperate promises, his willingness to destroy an innocent man to save himself. That night, I had everything. I had proof of my father's embezzlement, which I had helped him commit while documenting it for the authorities. I had proof of Derek's fraud, including a recording of him agreeing to frame Bradley. I had proof of Morgan's loan from a fake company that I owned, with interest that had ballooned to $40,000. I had proof of my mother's texts with the music director, texts that I had partially fabricated to look worse than they were. I had enough to destroy every single one of them, legally, cleanly, without ever getting my own hands dirty. I could send them to prison. I could take their money. I could ruin their reputations. I could make sure they never smiled again. But I didn't use it, not yet, because revenge isn't about pulling the trigger. Revenge is about holding the gun. Revenge is about watching the other person realize that you have the power to end them and that you are choosing not to. Yet, I called a family meeting at the old house, the white house with blue shutters, the porch swing that still creaked, the same house where I had been told about the church roof, the same house where I had been told about the college fund, the same house where I had begged for my husband's life. Everyone came. Dad, Mom, Derek, Morgan, they sat in the living room. They looked tired. They looked broken. They looked nothing like the people who had stolen my car money, my college fund, my husband's chance to live. They looked like what they were, lost, scared, alone. I stood in front of them. I didn't sit. I wanted to be above them, just for a moment, just long enough for them to remember this feeling. I know everything, I said. My father frowned. Know what? I know about the pension fund. I know about the fake developer. I know about Derek's loan shark. I know about Morgan's fake loan. I know about the texts Mom has been deleting. I know about all of it. Because I did all of it. The silence that followed was not the silence of my childhood. It was a new kind of silence, the kind that comes before a scream. Morgan spoke first. Her voice was high and tight. What are you talking about? I pulled out my phone. I played the recording of Derek agreeing to frame Bradley. His voice filled the room, drunk, desperate, pathetic. Derek stood up, his face was red. That's not real, that's AI. She faked it. I played another recording. My father telling me how to hide money, how to lie to the investigators, how to blame a dead employee if anyone asked questions. His voice, clear as day, every lie. My father's face went gray. Not pale, gray, the color of old cement, the color of death. Why? My mother whispered. Her voice was small, like a child's. Why would you do this to us? I looked at her. My mother, the woman who held me when I cried. The woman who chose prayer over action. The woman who loved me best when it was easy. The woman who told me God had a plan for me. The woman whose plan was always for someone else. Because Sam died, I said. Because I asked for $20,000 to save his life, and you said no. Because you bought Derek a lake house. Because you planned a wedding for Morgan that cost more than my husband's funeral. Because every single time I needed you, you chose someone else. You chose yourselves, and now you have nothing. My father stood up. His hands were shaking. His voice was low and dangerous. You're going to prison for this. Am I? I said. Let's think about that, Dad. What exactly did I do? I gave Derek money. He spent it. I gave Morgan money. She spent it. I introduced you to a developer who turned out to be fake. That's not a crime. That's bad luck. You're the one who sold the warehouse without proper checks. You're the one who hid money from the pension fund. You're the one who lied to investigators. I just happened to be there, taking notes. I held up the thick folder. Read, tabbed, organized. This folder contains everything. Every text, every email, every recording. I have enough evidence to send you all to prison. Derek for fraud, Dad for embezzlement. Mom for perjury because I have a recording of her lying to the labor board, and Morgan for bank fraud because she signed that loan agreement without reading it. Morgan started crying, real crying, not the pretty kind, the kind that makes your whole body shake. She looked at me with wet eyes. Riley, please. We're family, family, that word they had used to take everything from me. That word they had used to justify every theft, every lie, every betrayal. That word that meant nothing and everything. We're not family, I said. Family doesn't let your husband die. Family doesn't steal your money. Family doesn't sit in the back row at a funeral and leave early. You were never my family. You were just people I was related to, and now you're nothing. I took a breath. I looked at each of them, one by one, but I'm not going to send you to prison. They all looked at me, confused, hopeful, desperate. The hope in their eyes was disgusting. They didn't deserve hope. I'm not going to do that because I don't need to. You're already destroyed. Dad, you lost the company. Derek, you're going to lose your house. Mom, everyone in town has seen the articles about the affair. And Morgan, Bradley left you last night. I know, I saw him at the bus station. Morgan gasped. You saw him? I drove him there. I gave him $500 to leave and never come back. He was going to leave anyway. I just made sure he left now. He's in Florida by now, maybe Texas. I don't know, I don't care. My mother stood up. Her face was twisted. Not with sadness, with rage. You're a monster. I smiled, not a nice smile, a real smile. The kind that comes from a place without mercy. No, Mom, I'm what you made me. You taught me that family comes first. I just redefined what family means. From now on, family means me, just me. You taught me to be quiet. I learned to listen. You taught me to accept leftovers. I learned to take everything. You taught me that love is conditional. I learned that revenge is patient. I walked to the door. I put my hand on the knob. The same knob I had touched 1,000 times as a child. The same door I had walked through after every disappointment. The same door that led to the porch swing and the blue shutters and the white house that was never really a home. I turned back. The folder stays with my lawyer. If any of you ever try to contact me, ever try to blame me, ever try to tell anyone what really happened, it goes to the police. And you all go to prison. But if you leave me alone, if you pretend I never existed, then I'll pretend this folder doesn't exist. We all walk away, with nothing, which is exactly what you gave me. I opened the door. The porch swing creaked. The sun was setting. The sky was orange and pink and beautiful, just like the night Sam died. Goodbye, I said, and I walked out. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I could hear my mother sobbing, my father yelling, Derek throwing something against the wall, Morgan screaming Bradley's name, the sound of a family breaking apart, the sound of a family that broke apart a long time ago. They just didn't notice until now. I got in my car, a used Honda Civic, blue. It cost me $500. It smelled like old coffee and had a dent in the passenger door, just like the one I wanted when I was 16. Life has a way of coming full circle. I drove to the edge of town. I parked on the overlook where Sam and I used to watch the stars. I turned off the engine. I sat in the silence. The stars came out, one by one, bright and cold and far away. I thought about Sam, about his laugh, about his hands, about the way he said my name. I thought about the daisy Mrs. Alvarez gave me. I thought about the blue Honda Civic at Miller's Auto Sales. I thought about the envelope in my sock drawer. I thought about the church roof. I thought about the college fund. I thought about the lake house. I thought about the wedding. I thought about the $20,000. And for the first time in my life, I felt peace, not happiness. Happiness is for people who haven't lost everything. But peace, the kind that comes when you stop pretending, when you stop begging, when you stop hoping that the people who hurt you will suddenly become good. They won't. They never do. The only person who saves you is you. I still have the folder. It's in a safe deposit box under a different name. I don't look at it. I don't need to. The power isn't in using it. The power is in knowing I have it. That's the revenge. Not the destruction. The knowledge that I could destroy them. And the choice not to, because I am not them. I am not cruel for fun. I am not selfish by nature. I did what I did because they left me no choice. And when it was over, I walked away. That's the difference between us. They would have kept kicking. I stopped. My name is Riley, Riley Connors, but not for much longer. I'm changing it next week. New name, new town, new life, no family. No memories, just me and the open road. I'm going to see the ocean. I'm going to live in a city with tall buildings. I'm going to be someone. And if you ever meet someone like me, someone who has been taken from too many times, someone who has been told family first while being put last, I hope you remember this story. I hope you understand that the quiet ones are the most dangerous. Not because they are angry, but because they have nothing left to lose. And when you have nothing left to lose, you have everything to gain. The sun is gone now. The stars are out. Sam used to say that stars are just holes in the dark where the light gets through. I think he was right. I think I'm a hole now, a hole in the dark, and I'm letting my own light through. Goodbye, Millbrook. Goodbye, Connors. Goodbye to the girl who accepted leftovers. Riley is gone, but I am still here, and I am just getting started.